Angkor Wat, their personal investigation, and the majority of what we have expressed in the previous chapters confirm that the scientific world, it turns out, lacks knowledge about the past. For example, Cambodian and Australian archaeologists have discovered, using new technologies, that the Hindu temple complex known as Angkor Wat in Cambodia is much larger than previously thought. This finding highlights the limitations of current understanding in the field of history. The study utilizing laser scanning and ground-penetrating radar impressed all individuals. Ultimately, it was discovered that the area of the complex was not 200 sq.km as previously believed, but an astonishing 3,000 square kilometers in actuality. In the first place, were they aware of these studies? No, they did not have any knowledge about them. Secondly, what type of temple complex is it then? A total area of 3,000 square kilometers. Gentlemen, this is a fully fledged city, and considering the remaining fragments, it is completely impossible to imagine what kind of devastating event could have caused the destruction of such an enormous city. These structures are eternal. The sheer size of this city never fails to amaze every single person. Initially, without computers, it will certainly be unfeasible for contemporary engineers to compute, design, and generate a three-dimensional model, regardless of the extent of their studies. I observe an unmatched, magnificent, and awe-inspiring machine-driven processing of stone. However, in scientific circles, there's a belief that the past was not a fairy tale. It was characterized by wildness, backwardness, and reliance on manual labor. I will take a short break and have a chat with people. People, perhaps you could start slapping those who speak in that way. It's important to address such language. Such, that it would not cause much harm, but it would be offensive in nature. We observed throughout the existing perimeter that they labored on massive and colossal blocks. Impressive statues of different sizes. In them we see, firstly, not only the perfect fit of the seams, which even for modern restoration masters turned out to be impossible to restore, but also the face on this polygonal pavement. How? In addition to large, medium, and small articles, we can see bas-reliefs painted on all walls, and even intricate lacework adorns the surfaces with exquisite detail. Such a level of skill and hard work is something unimaginable by modern standards. No, beloved friends, the past was akin to a fairy tale, irrespective of whatever anyone told you about it. It's hard to imagine it with the pattern, blocks, and seams together. At first, the bas-reliefs were laid out, and then they were cut by machines, or they were made immediately during the stone extraction, and then the builders played Tetris. It is not extremely difficult. For our period of time, this is simply something that is unreal. The Angkor Wat region is furnished with intricate hydraulic systems comprising of canals, moats, and expansive reservoirs known as bure. I am of the opinion that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Any builder will undoubtedly say that such a massive structure unquestionably requires a massive foundation. What is the opinion of the scientific community? For instance, the publication caught my attention. The temples of Angkor in Cambodia were constructed on sand. It is possible. It was seriously expressed by scientific circles that this city is built on the ground, which is a belief held by many. Then Dr. Iwasaki, a doctor of technical sciences, conducted a study on the geotechnical characteristics of the Angkor as part of a group representing the Japanese government in 1994 as a member of a Japanese government group. In his works, he noted that geotechnical data indicate the soil is barely capable of withstanding the load from the weight of the structure. Scientists miraculously believed until 1994 that this contraption is on the ground, unaware of its true floating nature. And only after the statement of the Japanese scientists, the old version was expressed. The city is constructed on sand that has been compressed. Well, to be more precise, it is compacted and tightly packed together. Is it possible? There was an experience like that when professional builders worked in 1960. It was a significant event in their careers. I will take a chance and express my agreement, saying yes, why not, including sound. I will keep going. There was an experience in 1960 when professional builders attempted to reconstruct a building known as the Bafan Temple. And as humorous as it may sound, by the identical approach that historians enforced, stating, "Construct in this manner, we have superior knowledge than you builders, because historical textbooks are incapable of falsehood." The height of the tower is roughly 40 meters with a base length of approximately 100 meters. The internal material of the structure is sand that has been compacted. The angle of the steep embankment is 40 degrees.
Degs.
Following the completion of the initial stage, which had a height of 5 meters, NASA encountered a catastrophic collapse. The second endeavor concluded with the same result. Ultimately, the French abandoned the idea of following historical technologies and instead opted for concrete instead of sand. What are your impressions on that matter?
Today I will show you unusual columns in the Ancient Temple of Vancouver. It is immediately apparent that these columns cannot be made using primitive tools such as a chisel and hammer. To create these columns, it is necessary to use a stacker machine and a rotating mechanism, because experts agree that it is impossible to engrave them using a chisel and hammer. I have already demonstrated to you the large columns in ancient Indian temples that were created using lathe technology, but the columns in Angkor Wat are significantly more perfect. This is such an advanced technology that it is even impossible to replicate it today using the technologies we currently have. I know it is a bold statement, but if you watch this video to the end, you might agree with me. Observe the columns in this location. They are extraordinary and astonishing. These labels, known as pivot points, can solely be accessed utilizing lathe technology. However, examine the other operations. They showcase precise and complex processes in the cutting of threads, and this is the sole technique to acquire multiple small cylinders on the identical shaft. Here we observe another procedure known as chamfering, in which one component becomes convex while the other becomes concave. Looking at this, you can imagine that at least 90 years ago, this complex work was done on solid sandstone blocks. But the ancient builders were not satisfied even after processing them on a lathe. You look at the different millimeter engraving on the edge of the column. She is amazing. And now you can see this vertical line going from top to bottom, which is required for the operation of this modern machine. For example, such as an angle grinder or a circular saw. I'm concerned not only about the vertical slit, which is essentially unique, but also about the fact that this line goes from top to bottom, and look at the depth of its slit. She is evidently not made for beauty. This is a fairly deep incision, and it divides the column into 4 equal parts in terms of length and width. It's mind-blowing for the technology of that time, and we won't be able to repeat it even today with skilled lathe machines. This column is approximately 2 inches wide. Imagine you take a sandstone cylinder that is only 2 inches wide, cut it in half, and then join the halves together so that it looks like a whole piece of sandstone, maintaining its original width of 2 inches. We will not be able to do this without a computerized machine, such as a numerically controlled machine tool. So can you imagine how they managed to cut the solid sandstone in half and divide it into 4 equal parts? Or, even more intriguingly, how did they adhere these blocks together in such a way that they appeared as a cohesive whole even after the passage of centuries? Look at the perfect hardware here. This looks like a flying wooden structure, but each of these columns is divided into 4 segments. This is evidence that the ancients knew about processing tech. But there is another overwhelming question that is more significant. Why? Why do they process these columns on lathes and then separate them, only to process them again? I don't understand the need for this repetitive process. It is much easier to eliminate the entire thing as one solid piece. Why divide it into 4 parts and then reassemble them? What mystery do they conceal within themselves? Ponder why you must slice and subsequently reassemble it. If there is no need for it, then you will never hide. There is no purpose in having it at all. The sole reason you are able to do this is if you have a necessity to conceal something within. Today, when we need to save, we make secret holes. We put secret things, then collect everything as if nothing occurred. Let's imagine there's nothing. Correct. We have experts who build hidden compartments in houses to protect valuable items from theft. If you pay attention to how these secret drawers are made, they take a solid object, break it, create a small cavity in the center, and then put everything back together so that no one can even guess that it is a container in which something is located. 99% of individuals will typically perceive it as a solid object or entity. Is it not because of this that these columns were divided? There is definitely something inside, and it can be a sequence of technology that is inside the main towers of Angkor. That's it. In the prior video, I already demonstrated to you the presence of a mysterious energy lizard within the secret room of the primary tower. Now let me clarify why I combine these columns and main towers. That is the reason. All these columns are located in places where the sun shines on them at certain times of the day. When they are in the shade, you can't see anything, but when the sunlight falls on them, look at the shadow. This shadow displays the towers of Angkor Wat. If you observe closely, you can perceive the central high tower, two smaller towers, and even two towers on the sides. I mean, it's definitely not a coincidence. These shadows appear only at a certain time of day on certain columns, creating a magical effect. It's like some kind of symbol or code indicating advanced technology hidden inside some of these columns. For what other reason do they create complex structures, making them more mysterious and generating shadows in the form of towers? If you walk through the temple, you will be able to see that each window is guarded by these celestial beings known as apsaras. In most other Indian temples, these guards are depicted as protecting the main hall and the main gods. But in Angkor Wat, these guardian angels are depicted as protecting these columns. What valuable is hidden inside? What do they need to protect? What were they created for? I am certain that some engineers will find this question amusing, right? I mean that windows are designed to let in air and sunlight, you know? And these columns are decorative elements, in certain areas entirely covered with sandstone blocks. Thus, these columns were certainly not created as decorative elements and not as openings for sunlight or air. But for what? So, ancient builders certainly utilized advanced processing technologies. They employed lathes, they had the expertise to cut stone blocks in a manner reminiscent of pizza, and they knew how to assemble them again. But we don't know the answer to the most important question. What is concealed or kept secret inside this particular object?